Okay, 5 minutes this morning, a post on is social media bad for me? Well, I'm thinking about this because it seems recently there's more and more people, more and more friends of mine that are getting off of social media. It seems to be like this thing where some people get off and then other people come back on, and then it's this kind of like on off on again off again thing that I notice randomly happening. It's not like everybody's off and then everybody's on. It's like this person's off this month and then they're back on the next month, and you know, it's it's kind of like that. And obviously I know why people are going off. So I don't need to talk about that at all. I guess for me, I've just noticed myself thinking about it more, like, and how I relate to that experience. For me, what I've noticed is that if I have a friend who's suddenly like, yeah, I'm not on social media anymore, meaning I'm not going to be using Facebook, Instagram, usually that's what it means. For me, it's a bit like losing a friend because my situation now is that I work from home. I'm here at my computer all day, and the main way that I stay in contact with people, both in terms of being able to message people and also in a contact in terms of like knowing, being aware of what's going on with friends, is through social media. So with a situation where more and more people are getting off social media, it feels like less and less ability to stay in contact with people, and nobody does phone calls anymore. Um, so I'm not necessarily saying that that's a bad thing for me. It's kind of just like a shift, and then I'd have to figure out other ways to be in contact with people. So maybe it's a good thing. But at the same time, I think a lot about my own social media use because, in a lot of ways, I really enjoy using social media. I I understand the addictive component that everybody's talking about. I also have the experience of getting into like, a doom scroll or just wasting excess time scrolling. But there's also a component of that is part of an interest or curiosity in me as well, which, I mean, I sometimes think that I can over critique what I'm doing. And maybe the critique is an over critique because it's digital. Like nobody's going to critique me if I go and spend like 4 or 5 hours in a museum looking at art. But if I was sitting on the couch looking at Instagram posts for 4 to 5 hours, that would feel like I've just like wasted all my time, even though I might actually be looking at mostly like art, photography, things like that, which is actually what I look at a lot on Instagram. I follow a lot of photography accounts, art accounts, and it's a way for me to see what's going on in those worlds, which I really appreciate because, I mean, it feels like there are less and less avenues for access to those things locally. Like, like here in Taipei, I mean, I suppose that there are like art exhibits going on, but I don't hear about them as much. I think there might be less going on. And so, where are we going to get our exposure to these things? And, you know, for good or for bad, it's online. It's on my Instagram. I also I also like using Instagram uh, because it allows me a platform for self-expression that's just like completely available um, for me, for whatever I want to post, whatever I want to share. And even if nobody's watching, for instance, I'm making this video now for YouTube, you know, hardly anybody really watches my YouTube, maybe like 4 or 5 people usually. I mean, I had 16 views on one of my last videos, which is like viral for me. I mean, 16 is just like might as well be a million. But like the numbers show that relatively few people are watching. I think it's a little bit different on my Instagram. I get, a lot more views there, if I look at that, but mostly it just doesn't really matter. It's like, posting something on Instagram, whether it's a photo or a reel or one of these kind of like art posts. Come on, kitty. Um, that's always for me, actually. I think there's this perception that it's for other people or to get something, but it's mostly not like that for me. It's like something I want to do, maybe I want to create something and then share something. And, so many people have these things like, some people I know might be into making collages or be into, making art, paintings, creating things, and in some ways social media has turned into that creative platform for myself. Like, I mean, yeah, I don't even make that much stuff for Instagram, actually. Maybe a lot more compared to some other friends of mine, but yeah. So I guess I've mentioned this before, but for me, I really enjoy it. And so anyways, the point when I think about like, is social media bad for me? I feel like I also need to consider, all the good things that social media does for me. And when I say social media, to be honest, I think I'm really just talking about Instagram and maybe YouTube. I don't actually use Facebook anymore. My Facebook's there. I use Messenger for chatting, but I'm not like sharing things on Facebook. It's all Instagram until I find a different platform. But yeah, I think about all the good things that it does for me. Gives me a platform for sharing things. Gives me a way to see what's going on outside of my bubble. That's a lot of benefit, actually. And yeah, I do think that it's true, the addictiveness of it, the way it can distract me from just like it being in the real world. I think those things are true as well, but that's also on me to find balance in it and, you know, find ways to keep that in check a little bit, which I think I'm doing pretty well. And I think actually a lot of people can do that better if we find ways. I mean, I'm beyond my 5 minutes, but let me just say that I think one of the missing elements in this is, social media classes. Now we've got everybody on social media and kids are using social media. All this talk about like kids on their phone all the time. But I mean, our schools are like, our schools talking about, you know, social media in classes? Are they helping people? Are they helping kids understand like best practices? I'm guessing probably not, right? Like, is it there should be though. There should be classes on these things, and this is something that should be a different video, but I feel like there's so much opportunity to educate, especially young people, about these things in a way that would help solve a lot of the problems that are happening. You know, like for example, I remember hearing about like schools don't teach kids about responsible alcohol use, right? I never had a class. Do those classes exist? How about responsible alcohol use, right? That you could actually emerge in the adult world as a responsible drinker, by understanding all the things. No, like to become a responsible adult drinker, you have to learn those things on your own mostly, or by making a lot of mistakes, and then you're like, oh shit. But like that has those kind of things never seem to be put in place. It turns into a commercial, but it's not integrated into the education system. And the same thing with social media. I think like why is there no education around this? I mean, it's part of everybody's life almost every day, and yet the options seem to be like you have to be a full-blown social media addict or not use it at all. And I'm glad I got here in my kind of thought experiment with this because there's hardly ever any way for us to understand how to properly do the middle ground, right? So, social media can be really bad for me, but it could also be really good for me, like, and I think that it could, it has potential for bad, it has potential for good. That can be applied to so many things. And the missing the missing element to me seems to be an educational one. And the education for most of these things right now seems to fall on ourselves. And we have to do it alone, which happens by accident or because we're in a shitty situation, something bad happens, and we're forced to educate ourselves. So, anyways, yeah, that's my post today. Happy Sunday.